let's get started.
Hello, Padma. Am I audible?
Yes, Venkatesh.
Actually, I'm working as a QA engineer. So, what exactly BA will do in sprint days? Like if you take 2 sprints, can you explain me about that? As a QA, I will do like on sprint planning day,
Are
requirements
you
will
working
assign.
in agile methodology?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so are you working for a service-based company or some startup?
Service based only.
Okay, so in your team, do you have a BA or it's like separate, like your testing people don't interact with BAs?
No, we have BS.
Okay,
BS will
so
assign those requirements to us.
okay, so what happens in the daily stand-up call then?
Daily stand-up call, Scrum Master will be there. They will ask what's we are going to do today.
Mm.
So, but in that call, BS will never involve in that call.
Okay, so
We'll
they're
have
not
discussion.
coming. Okay, so what they're doing in your team is like BAs are like creating user stories and then they're assigning to you.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
My lead will dispatch those user stories to us.
Mm.
So if
So
we
do
have
you?
any doubts, then we will reach to BA. So if
Okay,
there is any functionality we don't understand any requirement, if we have any doubts, then we will reach to BA.
okay. So are you working for any US client or how is it?
Actually, it's a Europe project. It's a Unilever client. My client is Unilever. So it's a
Mm.
Pega BPM project.
Oh, okay, Pega based. Okay, good, good, good. And yeah, so I would say like I'll tell you exactly what is happening, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
My
when you
intention
get
is, I want to say, my intention is at the sprint first day,
mm,
requirements will assign to us. Then we will start like analyze those requirements and identify the possible scenarios and variety testing case. It will take at least 1 to 2 days based on the complex. Right? So after that, code will be deployed to the testing environment. We will start execution.
okay.
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
have
how many week is your sprint? 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
30 days.
Okay, it's a 4 week sprint then.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I will tell you, like, see, since you don't have any interaction with BA in your team, I think you will not have an idea actually what a BA will be doing, right? That's the issue. Okay, got it. Um, so these are the list of some of the list of the questions that, like, when you became, if you go as a BA, Venkatesh, what you will do is, so for gathering requirements, we have some techniques, right? So they're coming to you. Let's say that Pega application, whatever that BPM application you are saying. Okay. So what is that primary application is doing? Don't give me details. Just tell me like overall like data flow, what that application is going to do.
Yeah. Actually, the application is we can gather the information from that application. We can like get information in that application, and we can push the data into backend system. If you want to manufacture a new product or if you want to modify existing product, we can use that application. You know, have so many products in the market, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
shampoos, perfumes, all those. So all those products we can manage from this application.
Oh, okay, got.
So
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
if you
it's a
Unilever is having a new, let's say like a shampoo product, so what is your team doing?
So my team is doing like there's approvals like stage one, stage two, stage three approvals is there. So
Mm.
based on materialist, we are giving the approvals. Some use cases we are using.
So it's internal to Unilever, right? It's your nobody. It's not public facing.
Yeah, yeah, it's a intranet application.
Internal application, yes, got it. So so let's say that you're getting a new product, okay, and you have to like do all these approvals and you have to push to an internal team. Another team is going to handle that, okay. So what you will do is, if you get that requirement, what you will do is, these are the questions that you'll be asking. If you're a lead BA, now you're going to, this new requirement is coming, they're launching a new shampoo product. Now what you will do is, first thing is you will be asking like these are the following questions you'll be asking, okay. So what is this approach? What is the goal of this new requirement? What is the timeline for this requirement? What type of project it is? And you already told, no, in your project it's going to be agile. So I have a 4 week sprint. So the answer is I have a 4 week sprint. Then I have like, I know what is the product. There is a new line of shampoo that's being launched. Then we have to like certain approvals and all that and make sure it's going to another system, right? So what are they? Uh, from a high level, you need to understand approach is going to be always like agile techniques and models and tools what we are going to use. So the product here is a Pega based product. So we know the platform is a Pega based product. Okay, so coding platform is Pega, and then we are having like we are going to have Agile. We are clear on that. And then it's going to be a 4-week sprint. 4-week sprint. And then now what you would have to do is like, what's the timeline? Let's say that they want to go live in October 1st. Okay, so October 1st, they want to go live. Okay, I'm putting the date in US standards. So in India it should be different, but here it's 10/1. Okay. So what are the regulations? It's like whether it's something like it has to go on that or it can be like postponed. So if business owners are saying that this new shampoo has to be launched on 10/1. So we want everything to be in the system by 10/1, then it's like a state mandate, right? This you cannot postpone that. So we have criticality, and that's like, for example, Apple will usually launch in September. They go live date for the new product will be September first week. During fall only they will be launching. So uh, like this, if they have very specific dates for a new product to be launched, because that's when people are like, during this fall time only people are like, they have that summer is going and then there is fall coming, so they'll have that craving to buy new products. That's why if you always see, Apple will be like taking advantage of the weather and they will launch the product in September. So they have their own tactics of when a product needs to be launched. So if that something has to go in December, it has to go that month. Something has to go in November, that will go that month. So they have their own like dates, right? So you have to get the date, project timeline, what are the basic approaches that you have to do as a BA. Now you need to like make sure that for this particular project you need to know basically about like who are the business stakeholders, who are the primary stakeholders, and how to write requirements. Now approval process and all may be differing from like each team to each team. Like in your team, like you told that you don't interact with BA at all, right, Venkatesh?
Yeah. If you have any
So,
doubts, then only we can connect with you.
okay, then who is giving approval for you?
We don't know about that actually. So they are
So you just
providing
push.
FRS.
Hmm.
They are providing FRS on sprint planning day. We will review that. Then we have any doubts, we can connect with you.
Okay,
In
when
sprint review also, my developers will giving demo to the stakeholders of your clients.
developers are giving
Demo after the
demo.
sprint.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as a tester, so what is your work? You're just executing your test plan. That's all. And if there is
Yeah,
any
writing test
defects,
ticket.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, writing test tickets, executing tests like smoke sanity regression,
regression
integration,
and all
SIT
integrate.
lab,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and raising bugs in
Will you
Jira.
push the code to UAT and then give it to the business owners, or who
No, no,
will
no.
be
UIT
perform?
is separate team. Actually, it's a separate team. It's conducted by another client actually.
And the client team.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. I mean,
So I
I
don't know
think.
whether the code is deploying also. We don't know. We don't much scope in my current
Mm-hmm.
organization. I don't have much scope.
Much
So that's
scope.
why I'm.
You want to move? Okay, got it. See here, now it's like you are as if in your own space and you are just testing. That's all. I mean, the exposure for you, you can say that you're working for a service-based company, but like the exposure for you, even though you're already in IT, like you don't talk to the business owners, you don't. So they give you some test plans, or you are creating the test plans. They assign the user stories. Now you are just performing only the different types of testing, like you said,
Yeah,
sanity,
and
integration.
documentation like
Hmm.
documentations also, status
Yeah.
reports, execution reports on collecting execution evidences.
Evidences. Okay. So now you don't have exposure to UAT as well, right? So, but it's
Yeah,
different. So what you have to learn is you, even though you have IT, how many years of experience you have?
4 places.
4+. Okay. So even though if you have 4+ experience in IT, you're not exposed to this BA role and what UAT people will do. And also, I'll tell you what will happen. When gathering requirements, you need to have an approach. You need to have a process in place, and you need to understand end to end, high level, all the business requirements, and you need to document that. That will be your first role and responsibility. Okay. So how to gather requirements, how you need to like convert that requirements into user stories, that itself is a technique. So for example, I gather requirements like I told you, like using interview, workshops, surveys. Okay, I gather requirements and then I'm going to convert that into user stories, right? I'm going to convert that into user stories. That's the first thing I'll be doing. Once you convert that into user stories, every user story needs to have a summary and acceptance criteria. Do you know how to write acceptance criteria?
Yeah,
Okay, that's a format, right? So you have to write that. And then basically like all the documentation for that user stories, for example, for the whole project, like BRDs, FRDs, that you if they want, you're going to write. Otherwise, if it's like very internal, like in your case, you're not dealing with any external vendors, so it will be mostly user stories. So you have to create all the user stories, you complete all the documentation, you get the sign off from the business owners before the development, and then it's a 4-week sprint. In the sprint planning call, you guys are going to pick up the user stories. Okay, so you pick up the user stories, and then developer is going to develop it, and like you said, your team is going to test it. Now the code is going to UAT. Now as a BA in UAT environment, you have like high responsibility. In UAT, what will happen is you have to create the UAT test plan and test scenarios, like how in SIT you're doing it right now, but in UAT you will be doing it
Okay, there is a similar to real-time scenarios, right?
real time. Similar to production, no, we have to mimic the same thing in UAT. It's different in SIT. Like what are like you said you did sanity integration testing and all that, right? So that will be a little bit different. You'll be testing each and every technical things in SIT, but in UAT it's more like exactly like from the end user perspective. Okay, so that
environment, the environment is similar to the production environment.
correct. We are mimicking the same similar to production environment. Now you may be developing the test plan test scenarios, but who has to do this? Like you said, there can be a different. If it's going to be a very big project, we are going to have a separate UAT team. Otherwise, it's usually the business owners. Okay, business owners will be testing. Okay, once they test, then they are going to give the sign off. And for deployment, do you have another DevOps team or who is deploying?
We don't know about that actually. So we are just doing in this time. I think it's sprint days only. If we have any high level priority bugs, then we don't want to give the sign up. If there is any low priority bugs is there, then medium priority bugs is there, then we will give the conditional sign up.
Conditional sign off. Okay. No, I'm asking about deployment, right? Do you coordinate during deployment or is there any other team?
Other team.
Other team. Do you know what's the like generic name that you give to the team? DevOps team, or like do you have what is the team name?
Actually, we never spoke with them. So
We never
after
spoken.
completion of my task, it's deployed to UAT team, right? So UAT team is with other company will interact with them. So not my
Okay.
organization.
Okay, but in the interview, they're going to ask you these questions. Okay, so you have to know about deployment process. Do you know about how you work with DevOps team and how do you get the sign off? So how do you deploy? What are, during like deployment? What kind of coordination you have done? So once you give sign off, once from you get sign off from the business owners, now deployment team is coming. Okay, so your engineers won't deploy in production. We always have a third party people who's going to deploy due to various constraints. Usually like in Fortune 400 companies, we have a third party to deploy. What they will do is, so you will be having a intake ticket. You have to raise an intake ticket to that team. So have you ever heard of ServiceNow?
Yeah, I heard about that, but
Have you worked on ServiceNow?
no, I don't have any work experience.
Okay, let me show you what is ServiceNow so that you understand deployment process. Okay, it's a ticketing system. If you see here, right, this is the product. ServiceNow is the product. It's a ticketing system. What you have to do is you have to raise the ticket here for deployment process. So you'll be given access. So you'll go and then submit the ticket. Once a ticket is being submitted, I will show you how the ticket will look like. Okay, if you see here, right, this is how the tickets will look. Okay, so what they will do is you will log into ServiceNow and you will raise a ticket. Ticket starts with INC. Okay, you will raise a ticket and they're going to give you a slot with high priority. What is it? Here you will be writing all your user stories, number and all. When was this created? what is the priority, whether it's in progress or not. So I will tell you what will happen in deployment. Once you get the sign off from the business team, now you have to like go in here, like BAs only will usually do this. Okay, you'll go to ServiceNow platform, you log in, and then you create a deployment ticket. Okay, and you will get a number like this. What you have to add is like you have to add description, and you add all your user stories here, and then you make sure that all your UAT documents are attached here. Okay, so all your SIT documents, UAT documents, all the description, user stories, everything you will attach to this ticket. Now, this DevOps team will review this ticket, and they will be seeing whether you got sign off or not, whether testing was done in SIT, UAT. They'll review all your test plans, and then what they will do is everything is fine, they are going to give you a slot. Okay, slot is usually in Friday or weekends after 9 p.m. EST time. So it will always go on weekends only. We don't want public to be affected, right? So we always go during weekends and after work hours, after 9 p.m. EST or midnight, like 2 a.m., something like that. They will give you a slot. So once that slot they have given, what you have to do is you have to log in at that particular Friday night, 9 p.m. and see. So you're not doing anything. You're just raising the ticket and you're just monitoring the ticket. They will have a point of contact who will contact you. And if you log in at 9 p.m., right, they will be there, they will contact you. And once deployment is completed, you'll get an email notification saying that deployment is completed. If you go and see the status here, it will be like completed. That's how you track deployment. It's a very important interview question. They're going to ask you, have you handled deployment? How did you coordinate with deployment team? What's the ticketing system you have used? Tell me what's the process of deployment. Because as you told, no, testers don't have that access. And UAT also, like that team also won't have access. Deployment is done by third party. But as a BA, have you coordinated with all these different teams? Do you know the process of deployment? If they ask like this, then this is how you have to answer.
Actually, my another question is what exactly BA will do in this sprint days? When he will gather those requirements for the next sprint, he will gather those requirements earlier.
No, we'll gather requirements like before two sprints.
Before two sprints.
Yes. So for now, I will gather requirements for my November-December sprint. Okay, so we cannot do it like on month basis, right? That's not how we do it, because gathering requirements is going to take time depending upon the complexity of the project. It will take time to write BRD, it's going to take time, and to write user stories also it's going to take time. And we are going to constantly refine the requirements, and they also don't know the requirements, right? So they're going to change and everything, provide sign off and all. So right now I'm gathering requirements for my November and December sprint. Okay, so yes, any other questions? Okay, so for others, like what I'm saying is, like for any kind, you can be in IT, like what Venkatesh told, you can be in IT, you can be in different role, but you will not know what a BA is doing. So you need to thoroughly understand the basic roles and responsibility of a BA, and these are the questions that they're going to ask when you are gathering requirements, right? These are the questions that you have to keep in mind. So what is the strategy that I'm going to follow, and what is the effort I'm going to have throughout this project, and how I'm going to like gather all the requirements, whether it is like in one call or in multiple calls, or it's going to be a very big project. How long it's going to take? It's going to be everyday calls with the business owners. How am I going to document it? Is it using like BRDs, FRDs, or like I'm directly going to document in Jira? So you have to come up with the strategy and have this business analysis plan. Okay, if it's going to be a complex multi-year project, if you're going to work with multiple contractors and you're going to have hundreds of requirements, then it's you have to thoroughly document everything. Okay. Next is what are the different like elucidations that we are going to do. So for example, you're going to write user stories. That's confirmed, because most of the Fortune 400 companies they need agile. They're following agile methodology. They want the BAs to know how to write user stories, what is acceptance criteria, all these functional requirements. You're going to document it. And non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements are mostly you have to keep keep in mind the difference between what is functional requirement and a non-functional requirement. Functional requirements, something our developer is able to develop it, tester can test it, and we can go live. That's functional. We are in control of that requirement, okay? But non-functional means security based, performance based. So all that is non-functional. Okay. So we don't have any kind of control over these requirements because, like I said, like we can't ask the developer. For example, if a Pega application is being launched, customer has to log in and view the products or some kind of home page. That's a functional requirement. But performance requirement is it should be done in like 30 seconds, in 1 minute. If customer is able to log in into the application, but it takes 3 minutes for them to log in, that's a performance issue. Or if 100 people are trying to log in into one software application and there is a problem, that is also like performance issue. So those kind of requirements are non-functional. Our developers don't have any like I mean, of course we can do all this performance testing and all, and then we can have a solution for it. But that's the whole purpose of this project is not non-functional requirements. The whole purpose of this new project is customers should be able to log in and then they must be able to see the page. That's a functional requirement that needs to happen. So we can write down all the non-functional requirements, but mostly you'll be focusing on the functional requirements only on a functionality level. Okay. So next thing is like activity diagrams. What are the current state diagrams, future state diagrams, and then UML diagrams. So under UML diagrams itself, like you were having different type of like diagrams, right? Sequence diagrams, flow charts. There are so many things that if you you want to learn, and I will give you an example of software. So this, if you think that you don't have any experience, this mermaid is a AI tool. Okay, very very easy to use. You can try getting this. So this is a new kind of tool for all this for all these drawing diagrams and for charting. Okay, so if you see here, this is, I think it's been in the market only like 1 or 2 years ago, but this is a very brand new product. It's an AI tool for drawing all these diagrams. So if you see here, flow charts, sequence diagrams, class diagrams, state diagrams, entity relationship diagrams, user journey, pie quadrant, pie chart, quadrant chart. So they have like all this like basic coding that is being done. All you need to do is like, maybe I should take a class on how to use this so that you guys can understand it. So what you have to do is like you have to just give the prompts. Like, can you create a diagram? Just give like Chat GPT. You have to give a prompt, and it's going to automatically create diagrams for you. Okay. So you can try this if you have no idea about how to draw diagrams from scratch, and if you feel that you want to learn something latest, right? So, for example, if you give any prompt like, can you create a mind map diagram? So it is automatically going to throw you a like a diagram like this, and all you have to do is you have to edit the details. That's it. So if you ask it like, can you please create a sequence diagram? It's going to give a format, and then you are going to like add edit the details in it. So if you are very new to drawing diagrams, you don't know what is UML diagrams or any kind of different types of diagrams, please take advantage of these AI tools. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, it's called Mermaid. Then we have one is Miro also. Miro is also an AI tool. This one you can sign up for free. So just by using your Google account, you can sign up this for free. This is also an AI tool. So if you see that if you give prompts, it's going to draw some diagrams for you. Okay. So take advantage of these tools. Don't do it from scratch. Or as I've told you earlier, if you think that you need practice, you can always go to Glyphine conference page and start practicing all the diagrams. Okay. Any doubt about diagrams? Because I think many people have doubts about how to draw these UML diagrams and all. Okay, I think
Yes, we do have, but depending upon the case, if you take one case and you show us how to draw this UML, probably that would be helpful.
okay. So I think that I can. Tomorrow is the last class, right? So tomorrow I'll take one case and I will show you how to draw an UML diagram. Okay. So let me finish the other document that we started yesterday. So regarding this business analysis plan. So in the business analysis plan, I have told you that. So yeah. So these are some of the techniques, right? So you're going to use some of these techniques, workshops, focus groups, questionnaires and surveys, and document analysis. So using one of these techniques, you're going to gather the requirements. And then after you finalize on the techniques, now you are going to now you have a solid understanding of the requirements. Now you have to create all your user stories. So in the user stories, one of the main important interview question is give me an example of a user story with acceptance criteria. So they will be asking, explain about your previous project and give me an example of a user story with acceptance criteria. So don't tell them this login thing. They will understand that you are watching YouTube videos and you're just explaining it. Something that is very realistic. If you're already working in an IT industry, you're already working on some product or in your previous projects, please take some existing functionality and you have to tell them as a user story. Okay. And then you have to make sure that you give proper acceptance criteria. So acceptance criteria has like a format as a I need to show that. So there's a standard format for acceptance criteria. So you need to use that acceptance criteria and explain the user story to the interviewer. So very important interview question. Tell me the user story and acceptance criteria. So once you write all the user stories with all the acceptance criteria, now we need to understand what is the definition of done. This is also an important interview question. So they're going to ask you, when is the user story is having the done status? So what do you mean by user story is done? What do you mean by user story is ready? So there are two important questions. First is mean by definition of ready. Okay. And then what do you mean by definition of done? These are two important um, interview questions. What do you mean by when a user story is ready? Okay, let me log into Jira and show. Okay, so now I gathered requirements. I created the user stories. Okay, now let me take an example of this Maryland transportation. Okay, so now I created a user story. Whether this user story is ready for the developer to pick up, no. I don't have a description. I don't have an acceptance criteria. I don't have the labels. So story points is missing. What are the things that is missing? So description is missing. And then you have acceptance criteria is missing. and then labels are missing, story points are missing. So this user story is not ready for the developer to pick. Now let me write the description. Okay, what's the description for this automation of Maryland transportation? That's like a very, very high level, right? So for this user story, let's take one particular scenario. Okay, now when the public or the customers, when they scan the QR code in the bus stop, so what it has to do is the QR code has to like go to a mobile application, ask them to like download that mobile application, the Maryland transportation like mobile application, and it is asking them to log in, and then they have to see the bus schedule. That's the scenario. So description is okay. So this story is complete. Once the customer is able to log into the MTA mobile application and view the bus schedule. Okay. So what is the description? As a new customer, bus schedule. Okay. This is the description. First of all, I need to log in. Okay. So when there's a QR code is there, when I scan it, it should be taking me. Then maybe that is itself is like a different. So creation of QR code will be a different epic. And then, but the criteria is the prerequisite here is customer is having a smartphone, and customer is able to scan the QR code. Customer is able to download our MT application. Customer now is having a valid username and password. They're able to log in and they're able to view the bus schedule. Okay. So prerequisite is customer is having mobile phone. That is something that the assumption is like customer is having, assumption is customer has a smartphone and has a valid account with MTA. Okay, that's the assumption. So description is like as a new customer, I must be able to log into MT application so that I can view my bus schedule. Now that's the acceptance criteria is this story is complete once the customer is able to log into the MT mobile application and view the bus schedule. Now, what are the technical details that we are going to give? Technical details for this user story is technical details is like what's the criteria for the username, password requirements. And then we are also going to have the like is it there any other, so any kind of authentication is required. Okay, for example, something like OTP. Usually for these kind of applications, secondary authentication is not required. It's not something like banking, right? But anyways, if that is required, that also we are going to say. So when they log in using username and password, if they have their phone number, there needs to be an OTP that's coming, and then they have to like give that number only, then it's going to allow to log in. So but this is all secondary. You have to discuss with your business owner whether it's essential or not. But now if you see this user story, we know that this one is something is like a minimum viable product. Now our developer is able to understand, okay, what is the requirement? There is a empty mobile application. Now I have to like develop a username and a password, and then so that some random public is able to create an account, and their existing members with the empty application, they must be able to log in, and they must be when the home page, right, they must be able to see the bus schedule, all with the bus numbers and everything. They have to see that schedule. So now this is something like they can develop. So for this particular requirement, you need to add the labels. What are the labels? Whether an analyst is required here? Yes, an analyst, business analyst required, an engineer is required, and then a tester is required. Okay, and then what else? Is it funded? Yes, it's funded. And is it essential? What is the priority for this particular user story? I have to pick this now because let's say the go live is like in November. So right now I have to pick this. I have to do so because this particular login functionality will be the basis for other requirements, right? Without this, we cannot develop other requirements. So this will be like a primary functionality that we have to start developing in the upcoming sprint. So this is essential requirement. And then so you're going to add those labels. Okay, so you're going to add those labels here. So now we have the labels. Now what are the story points? So to develop this, like from your perspective, you give like two to three story points. Story points are always Fibonacci series. Okay, so 1 pointer, 2 pointer, 3 pointer, 5 pointer, 8 pointer. So what is Fibonacci series? If you add these two numbers, you should get the third one.
Why
Okay.
is it Fibonacci series every time, ma'am?
I don't know. You should ask the one who created all these story points. I don't know who created it. Someone like back some 20 years back, someone created this agile methodology, right? So I don't know why they made it. To be frank, I don't know why they made it a Fibonacci series, but it's only Fibonacci series. If you tell in the interview that I gave 4 story points, then they know that you are fake candidate. So I don't know why they're giving this, but this is the standard.
Pradeepa, based on the complexity or in that way?
One more thing on here in labels, should we be giving a particular developer name or is the entire team DL that needs to be added, ma'am?
No, you are not. See, you're not picking anything now. Okay, you're just grooming. Okay, once everything is groomed, in sprint planning only, assignee will be added. Okay, so you need to understand. For example, it's a 4-week sprint. In 4-week sprint, like the minute you created here the Jira stories, you won't be assigning anything here. You just say that an engineer is needed, an analyst is needed. That's all. Okay, and end of. Okay, so we are not adding the assignee name right away. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. When you create a user story, mute people. Okay, so when you create a user story, means you're just adding the basic information here. Okay, so whatever is needed for that user story. If all these are there, means this user story is in ready status, but you are not assigning to anybody here. You won't assign anything. So you're just creating it, you're just saving it. Now this user story has all the details, right? Description, acceptance criteria, it has labels, it has story points. Now this user story is ready for picking up for the next sprint because it is having all the details. So if when we say definition of ready, a user story is in ready status because it has the description, it has the acceptance criteria, it has got all the technical details. Now it has got all the labels. Now I know what's the priority, I know the story points for this. Now this user story is in ready for the developer or the analyst to pick up in the next sprint. Okay, let's say that I will give you an example. Let's say that from Monday a
Ma'am,
new,
one more thing, ma'am. Here in Jira, you see comments, history, and work log. What are there, ma'am?
this is like anybody can comment on this user story. So if I'm commenting, okay, I'm commenting, or maybe I'm commenting like this, you'll be able to see that I'm commenting here. If developer is commenting, their name will be there. So if you see in the history, you will know who created this issue, what all changes I did, what I added, and everything. If developer is commenting, his comments also will be there. So when was this issue created? 3 days ago. What did I update? I updated assignee 5 minutes ago. I updated the description 1 minute ago. So entire history of this user story, right? It will be there. Who created it? Did anyone change anything in the description? So comments, anybody in your team can add comments. Not only in your team, anybody having access to this Jira board in your whole organization, if they're able to view this, they can add a comment.
How about work log, ma'am?
Work log is like how many hours you're spending on this. Directly it will be tied to your timesheet. So you say that you worked around like 8 hours. Okay, now I'm saving. So this is like in some teams, no, your timesheet will be tagged to this user story. So how many hours you're adding it, right? Accordingly, your timesheet will get updated. In some teams, not in all the teams. So this user story is you are giving like 2 pointers. 2 pointers means 16 story point. 16 hours, right? So 8 hours it's already done. Again, you want to log in. You are going to edit. So now you completed 16 hours, 2 days. That's it. So what's the start time? Now you're saving it. Now it will be like you worked in the story for 2 days, 16 hours. So this work log is nothing but you are like, this is like automatically your Jira system is tagging how many hours you worked on this user story to your timesheet. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. Leadership is going to track your work by user stories, by timesheets. And so you have to be, some people are like, don't close the user story. If you don't close the user stories within your particular sprint, people will think that you are not completing it. So smart, like in order to, you have to be very smart nowadays, like especially towards the end of this year on all this recession and inflation and everything. Please be very smart in your organization. Don't lose the jobs, and like somehow make sure you have to portray to the leadership that you're working, you're completing all the user stories, and then everything is perfect from your side. You don't have any backlogs, nothing is getting postponed, something is assigned to you, you're finishing it. And then if you're going to carry forward this, please like create another part 2 or something, or maybe in different wordings, and then make it as essential and take it in the next sprint. Don't have the same wordings, same thing, and then don't carry forward from one sprint to another sprint. Okay. Next, any other questions till now regarding like what is the definition of ready for a user story?
Pradeep, I have a question about the user story. Is that anyone have access to the Jira? They have like ability to to add it, the user story. There's no like a sign off on the user story.
Yeah, there is no sign off for the user story. You're right. Sign off is for the BRD, but user stories, there is no sign off. Anybody can log in, anybody can create it. But in the history, we will know who created it.
Okay, thank you.
You're right. There is no sign off for the user stories. That's a good catch, because people think like for every user story, you need to have a sign off, right? No, for BRD, we get the sign off. For test plans, we get the sign off. Before we go live, we get the sign off for the whole project. But for user stories, we don't get sign off. Okay, any other questions on definition of ready? Now I'm going to teach you what's definition of done. What do you mean by user story is done? Can someone tell me? When you say a user story is done, what does that mean?
I think it's implemented and deployed to the production.
Correct. So what the status here, it should be here. Done, right?
Yeah.
So before you work on it, it should be to do. In sprint planning, you'll pick up this user story. From the next sprint, like again, let me give you a calendar so that you understand. Let's say that from Monday, we have a new sprint. Okay, from next Monday, we have a sprint start date. And this automation of mail and transportation has to be picked up from next. You have to start working on that story from next Monday. Now, tomorrow is Friday. Tomorrow you will be having the sprint planning calls. So now the already this user story is in ready status. So we can pick up this. All the details are there. In tomorrow's call, we will pick up this. So your name will be there, engineer name will be there. So you're picked up during the sprint planning call. From Monday, you'll be start working on this. Monday, this should go to in progress. Okay, once you start working on that, it will go to in progress. You see the status now, it's in progress. And then let's say that you completed all the developer has completed their work, testing team has completed their work, UAT is done, everything, you got the sign off and everything. Okay, it's a 4-week sprint. Okay, this is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Okay, and 20th this story has to go live. Let's say this login functionality has to go live on 20th. Okay, so on 20th, if it has to go live, you have to get the approval by 13th. 1 week before we go live, we have to get the approval. Okay, so we are picking this user story on 26th and we are developing this. We are testing in this all 3 weeks. We are getting all the sign off on 13th from the business owners. Now it's ready to go. So you created this, like I've told you, right? Deployment process and everything. You create the deployment ticket, you're tracking it, you submitted all the documents, you got a slot for Friday 20. On Friday 20th, 9 p.m. EST, you got the slot. So this particular functionality is going live on 20th. Now, a definition of done is it's gone live, it's done. Now it is like you will be changing it to done and you will close this. Okay, done means it's done, it's not in the backlog. Okay, it will be gone. So you have to understand that what's the definition of done and what is the definition of ready. And in the interview, like so many candidates are coming and telling me they're asking this question. So definition of ready means a user story is ready when it has the right description, a right acceptance criteria, all the labels, story points, all that priority, like whether it's essential, medium, high priority, low priority, whatever it is, and story points, it's there. That's a definition of ready. Definition of done means our developer has picked that story, you have picked that story, and you started working on it. Development is done, SIT is done, UAT is done. We got the approvals, deployment process also is approved. It is gone live. Now I'm closing it. So that is definition of done. Okay, this is the difference between definition of done and definition of ready. Okay, very important. So if you see now theoretically what they're saying, definition of done is nothing but a series of conditions that the entire team agrees to complete before an item is developed. That is called as definition of done. So you have all the acceptance criteria met, you have all the standards, you have all the requirements are met. Okay. Now, next one is like, let's talk about how to verify requirements. So this is also an interview question. Like, can you tell me like what is a standard for a requirement? A requirement needs to be consistent. Requirements needs to be correct. Requirement needs to be complete. Requirement needs to be measurable. It needs to be traceable. It needs to be testable. So this is all very theoretically they're saying, but let's take the scenario of that particular automation, right? Whether that requirements is consistent, there is no duplicate, that requirement is like it has the functionality, right? So someone has to log in and view the bus schedule, so that requirement is complete. It is measurable. We can test that. We can test that requirement, and also we can trace that requirement, and also it's very precise. No, it's going to be someone has to have the phone. They needs to have an account. They need to now log in using a valid username password, and they have to see the bus schedule. So we can test that requirement too. So whenever you're writing a requirement needs to be, if they theoretically, this is very theoretical, but you should be able to tell in the interview. So it needs to be correct, it needs to be measurable, it needs to be traceable, it needs to be testable. Okay, that's how a requirement should be. Next is, how do you validate a requirement? So validate means, like I've already told you about requirement traceability matrix, and so you have that Excel sheet. Let me show you RTM matrix again. See here, this is requirement traceability matrix sheet. Okay, so you're writing all the requirements. So you're writing whether it's a business requirement, functional, non-functional, technical, transitional. So all these requirements, you're writing it down, and then you're going to track it. This is like an Excel sheet, which you have to do manually track it. Okay, this is not in Jira board. You're doing it by yourself. So that's one way you can track the requirements. Or if you going to track it, here you will be able to track it in the backlog. So what's the status? Active sprints, like for here. So how many user stories I have for the current sprint, and then how many is going to in progress, from in progress to done. Okay, so how many user stories are there in to do, and how many is in progress, and then if you finished it, you're going to push it to done. So I can track it here also. In Jira board also I can track it, and then in requirement traceability matrix also you can track it. But here you have an added advantage. For example, you are partnering with an external vendor, then you don't have access, right? They also don't have access to your Jira board. So in that case, you have to like manually track all their requirements. Okay, but if you are, everything is internal, everybody have access to your Jira board, then you can track it directly in Jira itself. So what are the different user stories? How many was completed in last sprint, current sprint, what is happening? That's how you track the user stories. Okay. Next is prioritization. This is very important. They're going to ask you, do you know how to prioritize? So we have a technique, Moscow technique, very famous technique: must have, should have, could have, wouldn't have. So what is must have? Must have requirements are, I mean, user stories are something that has to be picked up in the upcoming release. Like I've told you, for example, if Monday is our new sprint start date, what are the different, we have in backlog, we have like about like 100 user stories, right? So in this 100 user stories, which user stories are must have? Must have means what needs to be picked. It cannot be postponed. Something cannot be postponed. This has to be picked up in the upcoming sprint. That is must have. Should have means I mean, it's fine if you have it, or otherwise it's not a problem. Could have means it can be easily left out. Wouldn't have, it's not at all an issue. Maybe not delivered this time. We can do that in September, or in November, October, or in December, or in January. So all that will be wouldn't have. Something that is having a time constraint, something has to go live in September, that we will pick up in for the next release. So that is must have. This is called as a prioritization technique, called Moscow technique. And if they ask in the interview, do you know prioritization techniques? Can you explain a technique? You have to say this technique only. Moscow means must have, should have, could have, and wouldn't have. So that's how you have to prioritize the user stories. So must have means, what is the criteria for must have? Something that is having time restrictions, compliance issues, production issues, all that is must have. And next, another technique is multi-voting, but I won't recommend all this. All stakeholders want their product to go live immediately, but we cannot do that multi-voting and all. So I would be going only for this. This is like a correct technique. Okay. So if there are 100 user stories in my backlog, and I have very limited resources, and I have only like 10 developers, 5 BA, 5 testers, then I have to make sure that I in the sense, not me, as a team, like with the product owner, you'll make sure that which user stories are must have, should have, could have, and wouldn't have. Okay. Next is WSGIF. WSGIF is also like, this is a complicated one. I don't know whether you guys can understand WSGIF, but I'll do my best to make you understand. So the product owners have to calculate a formula. Okay. And this is a very complex formula, but I will tell you in real time what we do. WSGIF is nothing but, if there are 10 people in the team, okay, there are 10 people in the team, okay. Around the 10 people, let's say we have 4 BAs. And then we have 4 developers. Okay, and then we have 2 testers. I'm just giving a hypothetical example. Okay, now 8, 9, 10. Okay, we have 10 members now. Now what happens is, it's a 4-week sprint. Okay, 4-week sprint means 20 working days. Do you agree? 4 week is like 5 days a week. If suppose we say that we don't have any kind of PTO or national holidays, 20 full working days, okay, for September. Then we have how many people working? 10 people. How do you calculate this WSGIF? WSGIF is nothing but, what's the business value for every user story? Okay, let's say like this. Okay, so for every user story, what is the business value? Business value is also in like Fibonacci pointers only. 1 pointer, 2 pointers, 3 pointers, 5 pointers, 8 pointers, 13 pointers. Okay. What's the business value? What is the time criticality? What is the risk reduction? Okay. So how can we reduce risk for this particular user story? Whether there can be like reused. Okay. The same functionality can be reused for another, or same coding thing can be reused for another project. That is opportunity enablement and risk reduction. And this is a formula that your product owner has to do. So you won't be doing it, but if in the interview, if you explain this, then people will know, really like what agile means. Okay. So what is WSGIF? WSGIF is a method where you rank all the user stories, each of the user stories, based upon business value, time criticality, risk reduction, and opportunity and enablement. And everything is on a Fibonacci sequence. Okay, this is the formula. This one, your product owner has to do it, and he will come up with, for every user story, he will come up with a value. Okay, based upon that value, this user story can go as first, this user story can go as second, this user story can, the same thing what I've told only, right? So time criticality, something which is like which has to go immediately, that needs to be on the top. Something that has a high business value needs to be on the top. Something which can be which is reducing risk for our partners, that needs to be on the top. Something that can be reused again and again and again, that can be on the top, right? So this is another formula. Okay, so just memorize this formula, and then in the interview, just tell them that there is also another method for prioritization that's called as WISGIF, and that's calculated using this formula. So every user story will have a business value, time criticality, risk reduction, and opportunity enablement value divided by how many hours it's going to take. Hours, it can be like 10 hours, 20 hours, and then you're going to calculate the WISGIF value for each user story. So depending upon if it has high WISGIF value, then that user story will be on the top. That has to be picked up in the next release. Okay, so this is the formula. So either you can go by Moscow method, or you can be going by this WISGIF method. Okay. Yeah, okay, I have to run, and then I think you guys can understand till now. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.